Welcome to the Zulu One Podcast. Today I'm interviewing Macha Einbender, a highly skilled and experienced family constellation facilitator. She dedicates her expertise to help individuals understand and navigate relationship and dynamics within their families. Through her extensive experience and innovative methods, she skillfully facilitates engagements that allow for a deeper understanding of family ties, providing insight and resolution to long-standing familiar issues. This unique approach has positioned her as a key figure in her field, making a profound impact in the lives of her numerous clients. Today on the podcast, we have Macha Einbender, a family constellation facilitator that's been doing this work for decades, right? Macha, what would you say, how long you've been doing constellations?
I would say I've been a student for more than a decade, but definitely been, doing this work actively as work and as a facilitator probably like in the last 5 years. Yeah. 5 years.
So when were you first introduced to it? Like what was that like?
So it's actually really cool. I would say like 14 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Yeah. My kids were really small. And I was in like this phase of my life where I just wanted to try everything. I was raised super spiritual like you and always loved anything that was like new. Anything that was new, I wanted to try.
Yeah.
I figured, this sounds really cool. And I found out about this thing called Family Constellation. And I thought, oh my God, this sounds amazing. I want to try it. And I heard about this girl who was doing it. And I invited her to come to my house. And I invited a bunch of my friends who did not know what they were getting themselves into. And they rarely do. Now looking back, I think to myself, like, oh my, what did I do to my friends? Like, thank God they still talk to me. I mean, seriously. They all came to my home and Natalie came over and she did me first, obviously, because it was my house, my idea. And I was blown away. I mean, the tears that were falling down my face, I felt like, what have I been doing all my life? Like, oh my God, why didn't I discover this sooner? So I called my mom, who you know very well, Michelle, and I called her up and she was living in Miami at the time. And I was like, all right, I found the best thing ever. I healed you. I healed me. I healed 7 generations back. I thought I was hot shit, I don't know. Were you allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I thought I was so cool. I was like, you got to fly here. I'll get this chick to come back and you have to discover this. Like, you have to experience it. And my mom's always up for anything. God bless her. She was like, okay, I'll come, Masha. So she came and she was blown away as well. Now, what she did was she ran with it. She was like, I want to do this. My mom has a degree in psychology and she's always been like a lifetime coach. Officially, like at the time she was life coaching, and she's always been a businesswoman and always saw like opportunities that lit her up. And she traveled the world. She worked with Bert. She worked with, all the people that I had never even heard of. And like I said, I always tell her all the time, I'm like, anything cool you discovered through me, don't forget that, So obviously when I just saw firsthand how many lives it touched and how many people this helped. And after seeing so many people, just witnessing so much pain and suffering and having been in a community of people who have been actively spiritual all their lives. Like we're talking Abraham Hicks cruises, doing Louise Hay affirmations every single day, drinking green juice. I mean, people who were spiritual and living life well, but were in bad relationships and were, spiritually wealthy, but financially depleted. And when they discovered this, all of a sudden their lives would change. All of a sudden their relationships would work. I always see it. I'm sure you do too, when you're in the field and you see somebody like they're before being on the field and then after, it's like they've just been reborn. I mean, it's better than Botox. Like they literally and they come out and they're like glowing and you're like, wow, you are a beautiful person. Who knew, So it's it's something that I discovered that I really wanted to pursue and be able to help other people. And, of course, help my mom, because I think my mom is so brilliant at it. And I know she always talks about your family and your mom, and she loves your family and your mom so much. And just all the people that I've met, facilitators that are just so extraordinary. So I wanted to join the family and do this.
And it seems so much it's a work of family systems, right? It's like you can't help but bring your family system into the family constellations, right? It's part of the It's part of the conversation. And for a little bit of kind of housekeeping for people that don't know, Masha's mother, Michelle Bleckner, is at this point world-renowned family constellations facilitator. And I remember when she went to her first constellation with Mark Wolin, that's the author of Didn't Start With You.
Start With You.
And that's where we originally met. And so to see her transition, or like her, this word is overused, but to see her growth in that, or that journey that she's gone to now, you guys were in Abu Dhabi recently.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like from seeing her from first discovering constellations, and I know she has like the Abraham Hicks, background for anyone that's more law of attraction kind of world. And of course, miracles. I know she had some work there, but to see her growth to where she is now is incredible. Tell me a little bit about Abu Dhabi, how the relationship came about.
Well, so about, I would say like 2 years ago, she met somebody who was affiliated with Tony Robbins.
Okay.
And they had talked about my mother. And so then they had invited my mom to come in and teach in Mexico at one of their events they call Happiness. And we went. I went with my mom because, my mom, at the time she was 79, now she's 82. She was turning 80 that year. And so, of course I went with her, and it was magic. It was like, first of all, most of these people who were all like, devoted to Tony Robbins and devoted to motivational lifestyle, they had never even heard of family constellation. And there were people there from all over the world, which really struck me because I was like, wait, why is this so unpopular? And you and I have talked about this a lot, the resistance to it. But some of these people now, like 2 years later, their lives have changed completely. Like the same people, it's incredible because it's the same people. So you see them, their evolution of who they are now. We're talking about going from wanting to take their own lives to now being coaches themselves and saving millions of other people, thousands of other people. So that was very cool. And then that opened up this whole community of beautiful people, just amazing people. The whole Tony Robbins community. Actually, the reason why I have this cup of hot tea and honey is because I just came from UPW where I played all out and lost my voice and, just like jumping up and down and saying yes and, all that stuff. And then she got invited to go to Abu Dhabi, which was just, oh my God, like a month ago, we were in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And again, the same type of event, this happiness event, and same group of people, but of course they always add on. And just seeing my mom up there and helping people and helping them discover these missing pieces to themselves and restoring order and love in their family dynamics, it was incredible. Best part too is that my 15-year-old daughter came with us.
Oh, that's so cool.
It makes me emotional because I love that she got to see her grandma in such, just like in all her glory, because when my mom is up there, she is like, it's unbelievable. It's like something takes over her. And she always says it's not her. She's a bridge, she does this work and something beautiful comes through her. So the fact that Remy was able to see that and witness that was really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful thing to see. It's just a generational healing playing out as well, like the effects of the generational healing, because I've witnessed your mom also do a lot of personal work. And so it's just such a beautiful thing to go through that and be there and then, fully step into her power and in the phase of life that she's in is also just such a beautiful thing too, is to become this like spiritual mentor and guide. Is just, it's really incredible to witness what that looks like. And I remember being in her living room here in Miami and just started the meditations. It was just like starting with the meditations, right? And then little by little it grew into this constellations on a regular basis. And then now where it is now is like, it's incredible. And it's really humbling to see the power of this work. And, we talk about systemic resistance is what we were talking about a little while ago. And to kind of explain what that is, it's the system's reaction to change, right? That says, hey, I want to keep this the same. There is a force, or there's a reactionary effort to not make it change, right? So a lot of people talk about when they're on their way to a workshop or a family constellation, your kid calls in sick, or you get a flat tire, your car doesn't start, or your alarm went off, it didn't go off, or whatever that is that's gonna prevent you from making this movement happen. Did you guys witness that with Tony's events at all, or was there just so much momentum that it really didn't affect it?
Well, that's a beautiful thing about the Tony events, is that there's really very little resistance. The resistance that I see all the time in those kind of events are people that they'll sit down next to my mom, and my mom will say, so what do you want to work on? And they're like, no, everything is great. Really no complaints. I really can't think of anything. And then all of a sudden, just my mom's like, very interesting. And then everything kind of unfolds. It's never what you expect it to be. So that's the type of resistance that I've seen there. But I've seen all sorts of resistance, all around, of people that are so excited to come to a workshop, and like you said, their kid gets sick or something happens or whatever it is, and they don't come. And people that I've known all my life that know exactly what my mom does, and or what we do, and they see, and they they see firsthand what's happening, and it's like come on, we can make this happen for you. We just give it a chance. But yeah, I think there is definitely that systemic resistance that is at play.
Yeah, I've literally seen somebody walk to your mom's door, turn around and leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, to just turn around and leave, which was like, oh my gosh, it's like that. There's just so much loyalty, and that's what we see in family constellations a lot, is that I'm so loyal to my family system that I'm willing to carry this burden, even if it costs me my life.
Exactly. Like that beautiful book too. Really, it's, and in retrospect, like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into that first day when I invited all my friends over and did that. I thought we were going to have like a little spiritual gathering, like kind of like the equivalent of a sound bath healing, Like I didn't know that I was going to, and actually every single person that's been my OG constellation group, everybody's in a very different place. Like life has, like, not to quote Tony, but life has never been the same basically since then.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that's a beautiful thing that I know, is that every single person that I invited into my home that first day, I'm close with all of them still, and they all broke through things and continue to do the work little by little, some more than others, but every single one of them has shifted from a place of fear, whatever it is.
And so when, I think I saw the documentary, the Tony, I'm Not Your Guru documentary. And what I noticed is that he seems like he's talking already about systemic principles in his own way, kind of talking about it. And I'm like, is he doing constellations? Is this part of it? And then come to find out, I asked a couple people that had been involved with him previously. And I suddenly, it saw that it was like, no, he's not. And then your mom came into the picture, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it'd be really interesting to see what that group looks like, and doing the family constellations and having that part of it,
Yeah, he was totally pre-filled, but a lot of what he talks about is so much like that generational healing, and because he's had his own wounds as a kid and his own family dynamics. So I think that, most of the time people start there, right? You start like with like what your family, what your relationship was like with your mom, with your dad. But then to be able to go and actually fix that, I hate the word fix, but to, you know what I'm talking about, like to reconcile. I love that. Yeah, just reconcile and put all those pieces back together and restore love and order. I mean, it's just a beautiful gift because everybody wants to heal their relationship with their parents, with their families, with themselves. People just don't know how. So, or like Mark Wolwin said, like his, you know, he was going blind and his life was falling apart and he traveled the world and the greatest gurus were saying to him, like, go home and work on your relationship with your mom. And he was like, that is not what I traveled across the world to find out, you know, like, give me something more. What herbal supplement should I take? You know, what can I do to heal this? But yeah, it really does start there. Your mom and your dad. And
yeah, that's like the hardest work that you can do is sitting right in front of you, right? Is to understand your parents.
100%.
You know?
I mean, it's so much easier to love your friends and to love, you know, even strangers or to forgive other people. But, you know, to really take a long look at your mom and your dad and your family dynamic and your everything that comes behind you and finding out, you know, what wars your family has been in, what tragedies. And also, like I always like to say, because I'm so rooted in Abraham, it's like, what gifts can you bring forward? What beautiful talents. There's so many resources that we can get from our ancestors. So once you start diving in deep there, it's like a gift, the gift that keeps on giving. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I love your mom saying our ancestors are overstaffed and underworked, right?
Yes. Like we don't call on them, and you know they want to help us. They don't. You know, she always says all the time, like they do not want you to carry this pain for them. You know, so she had everybody in Abu Dhabi like saying in their native tongue, "This pain does not belong to me," because Mark Wolwin's book. Yeah, so Mark Wolwin's book, translated in French, is "Ce douleur n'est pas la mienne," or and in Spanish, "Este dolor no es mío," right? So, which is very different from "It didn't start with you."
Yeah.
So, because it like hits harder.
It hits a lot harder.
Yeah, it hits a lot harder. Like, this pain is not mine. Holy shit. Like, I don't need to carry this anymore. Like, you know, all these people that have been carrying around generational burdens that they have no idea. They don't understand. Why are they depressed? Why are they anxious? What's going on? Why are they sick? And it's oftentimes because they've been carrying something out of loyalty for years.
Yeah. No, I see that happen a lot. And, you know, and what you said earlier really resonates with me. It's that the fact that people, you know, that seemingly have their life together are in that toxic relationship, and they're getting, you know, they're in a toxic dynamic at work, and they're spiritually abundant but financially, you know, barren, right? And you see like these things don't make sense unless you add the other dynamic of saying there's systemic loyalties in the family system, that there's patterns that you're repeating. And when you put that into play, you can start really being like, oh, there's a whole, and I like to call it math because I don't know how else to put it, but there's like a whole part to the equation that's affecting my day-to-day life that that I didn't even know that existed until you do this type of work of family constellations. Do you see that in like people just having that realization, that click, like pre-constellations and post-constellations?
For sure, all the time. Like something just finally registers in their head, you know, especially when everybody was like tapping their foot, you know, doing this like stampede of like stampeding of like, this pain does not belong to me. I mean, people were saying it in Russian, people were saying it in Spanish, people were saying it and she had them all say it in all their native tongues. And then you would see them cry because it's like they realize right then and there that whatever they've been carrying is not theirs. You know, it's like carrying other people's like suitcases when you don't have to. When, you know, it's like, why are you doing that to yourself?
Yeah. And out of just out of loyalty, out of love, right?
Of course.
That's what we all do. Position.
Yeah, we all do it out of love and loyalty. You know, we're of course loyal to our family. We never want to betray them.
Talk to me a little bit about, you know, your relationship with your family from a systemic perspective, but also from the day-to-day. How do you balance those two things, the wisdom of the field also, but also the human, right? There's a very human aspect of all of us. How do you balance those two things?
So, obviously family is very important to me, and I'm somebody who's always made like my friends my family too, because I was an only child. And I shouldn't say that I was an only child, actually. Like, we could talk more about that too. But I have a half sister and I had a half brother who passed away. So, that's a realization that I had in Abu Dhabi, which was really wild. We could talk about that. But how I do with my family is that it's really important for me, for my family to always know that I'm here for them, and that, always want to be a resource of being someone that's helpful, and that is there to listen to them and to be there for them. So no matter who's in my family, no matter what's going on, I'll stop anything for them. As far as my parents are concerned, obviously, like, I think about my father every day. My father's passed away 8 years ago. So, I honor him. I think about different things that I know would make him smile, make him happy. I know certain things that he would be like, no, Mosh, that's not good. So I do think about that. My mom, obviously, I have a very close relationship with her, and definitely, worked through a lot of different things. Wasn't always perfect. But I think that's beautiful in itself, because it gives you compassion to be able to help, with other things. So I would say that now we're in a pretty good place, which is good for her image too. Nobody wants to go to somebody who's estranged from their family to help heal like their own repair. And as far as my husband and my children are concerned, I'm very it's very important that there are no secrets. I don't really hide anything. Once in a while, my husband, I'll hide something, a purchase or something, hide the Amazon boxes, but we laugh about that stuff. And so in my day-to-day life, that's some of the stuff that, just always being upfront, always being authentic, always making sure that they know that I am the big one, they are the little ones, not putting too much responsibility and burden on them, but enough responsibility so that they grow. I have a 17 and a 15-year-old, so you want to give them some responsibilities, but never thinking that that my happiness depends on them. That like they are. That is
a price that a lot of children have paid.
Totally. Like, I'm good. Like, there's nothing that you guys can do, or my happiness is my own work, and my joy is my own work, as their joy is their own work. I'll do anything to make them happy and all of that. But I also know that there's not, unless you want to be happy yourself, there's really not much you could do as a parent. So that's important. So it's important for me to model, obviously, a good relationship with their dad, and with my husband. Like, that's important, for their future relationship. So, all those things are things that I keep in mind. And just teaching them every day that, like, family is important, and friends and family, you have to be there for them, for people. Never ignore anybody's pain.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Alicia, John's sister, and partner of Zulu One. Together, we're focused on creating a community of healing and growth. You can help by becoming a supporter on Buzzsprout. Just click the link in the description. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us.
Macha, what does it look like on, the day-to-day relationship with your husband, having this additional aspect of family constellations as a tool in your tool belt?
So, it's great. He loves it. He's not like he's been on the field. He's done workshops. He's participated, but and he honors the work deeply. But he's not like, oh my God, let me go along with. This is so cool. He loves my mom. So anything that she does and that I do, he takes a particular interest, and he sees the value of it. But my husband he's a dentist. He's like he's pretty grounded. Loves to fish. Like meat and potatoes type of guy. But he definitely sees value in this. And in our relationship, like this is where I've learned a lot just in my life, and not even through family constellation, but with other spiritual things that I've done, but family constellation as well. It's just like the dynamic between a husband and a wife. and how to honor that. Just like there's certain things, like I know that when he comes home from work, like just leave him alone for half an hour, that transition period, let him just settle in, settle down, not come at him, just honoring the space that he's in. And also nobody wants to be coached in a couple. There's nothing sexy about that, like there's just like,
Yeah.
there's nothing like that. Like, so, if he asks for advice, and he does a lot, I'll offer it. And he values that advice from my mom, from myself. My mom's helped him personally and in business and with relationships and things like that. So I think that's an important factor, is like, I've never been one to exert my beliefs onto anyone. So, and like I mentioned before, like he's got it going on. He's pretty good. I've known my husband since I was 5 years old. So
Oh, wow.
I know.
That's a gift.
So yeah, it is a gift. So I knew what I was getting myself into. I know his family. I know his dynamics, like my mom knows his family. My mom knew his dynamics, my dad, everybody. So that was great. It's like I already knew, what the family system was like. So yeah, I mean, it's had challenges, like every single thing, but I would say that for the most part, it's been pretty amazing. Yeah, really good.
And that's, once I started like really getting into this work, and I met my wife right after I did my first constellation, about 6 months after I did my first constellation. And, you start seeing the forest rather than the trees in some way. And you're like, oh, well, this is another pattern that's in my family. And this is a pattern that's in my family. And then, like, okay, well, let's work on this. And I'll be like, I'll work on this, and we'll little by little. And it's just been, I attribute the success of my relationship with my wife and the father that I am 100% to this work. I can't attribute it to anything else. It's not through, just my innate skills, right? It's not just this, that I just ended up being, it's just the more that I work on myself, the more available I am, the more present I am, the more I'm unentangled from old patterns, and the more I can right size my relationships with everything and my reactions to things. It's just such a powerful tool that, and this podcast is literally about family constellations. So this is what we talk about. But I'm a broken record. I'm like, well, from a systemic perspective, this is blah, blah, blah. And I can kind of come off like that, and be just like too constellation-y. And I struggle with that. I struggle with that aspect, because, when you facilitate a constellation, you're doing the stuff and you see the pattern over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I know I struggle with having the empathy that people are at the beginning of the journey, not at 16, 17 years later, throughout this process. So that's
right.
Do you ever struggle with that type of dynamic, or kind of understanding things, or just jumping into facilitating with things with people?
Yeah, a lot. Definitely. I think it's like that's definitely something that I do, especially if I have friends who have are divorced, or things like that. I'll remind them to talk nicely about their formers, and just to bring up certain things about their spouse, their former spouse that they see in their kid, those types of things. But usually it's pretty welcomed. And I've learned kind of when to shut my mouth and when to put my 2 cents in, so that people don't hate me. But
yeah,
with kids too, I'm like, a lot of times, like, I'll explain that certain behaviors, like if my kids will tell me something, I'll be like, well, like the reason why that so and so is so and so, because obviously they have issues with their this, so like I'm able to have like that different type of hat on. But I've tried not to be like overly worried or anxious or scared, because then that creates a whole other thing. Like I can't be concerned about every little thing that comes out of my mouth or my husband's mouth, like in fear that I'm causing like generational trauma, or like, because, I mean, they have to have something to tell their therapist later on or their facilitator.
Yeah.
Like, they'll have to have something to work on. Otherwise, it's not fun. But, but you know, for the most part, I'm pretty careful. But it does seep into my life a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's so personal. So yeah, I mean, it happens a lot. You know, where I'm talking to a friend or I meet somebody. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm always meeting strangers and they're always telling me their life story. So, you know, can't help it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's painful how much, it's like oddly painful how much people are just starving for connection. And if you're just open and you're not entangled in your own kind of crap, right? You could just open up your perception a little bit and people are like, I'm starving for connection. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, what that really is. But kind of going to a previous point, you were talking about parenting, right? It's like how much this work has, or like, do you see how this work has gone into your kids? Is that something that you've seen that connection?
For sure. Like I mean, both my kids are very compassionate, loving beings, and you know, they recognize the human suffering and human emotions very well. They're both like super connected to that. And with my parenting, you know, we talk about love a lot. We talk about forgiveness. We talk about, you know, just how we can create our own reality, how different the things that we tell ourselves and the words that we choose to use are very important. And yeah, you know, just that comes into my parenting, I think, every second of every day, pretty much.
And you mentioned something that was really important to have a conversation about. And for the listeners that don't know anything about family constellations, what are kind of some of the hidden dangers of speaking ill of your former partner? Like what's some of the dynamics that come through that?
Well, a former partner, like if you're married before and you have children with that person, your children are, you know, part you, part your former. So if you start bashing them, your child is internalizing that. They're internally saying like, well, then there's parts of me that my mother does not like. And that's when that disconnect starts. And then they start having loyalty to one parent, not the other, or usually who they perceive to be the weaker parent. And it causes just like unnecessary stuff. Like, why do that? So even if you despise your former, it's important to find things that can kind of reconcile that, you know, like, oh my God, when you smile like that, it reminds me so much of your dad, or the way that you play the piano is so much like your mom. It's such a beautiful gift that you inherited from her. Those things bring that back to a form of center and love, so that the child knows that they were created in love. I mean, you didn't hate your former when you had the kid, you know, most of the time, no. So, but I think it's really important as a parent when you're going through that, because when you have kids, you're married for life, pretty much. Yeah,
you're in that system for life, for forever. Yeah,
right, forever. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with that person, but it's helpful that there are gifts that are brought into the mix.
And you can wish them well for the sake of your children, you know, in some ways. But you know, maybe whatever the story is or whatever happened, you can reconcile and potentially make your peace or not with that. But you can say from a distance, I wish this person well, because the stronger that they are, the stronger our children will be. And so many people say like, my kids, these are my kids. Like, they're our children. Two people have to come together, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the story, to bring life, right? And to be able to give your children that gift is a really powerful moment.
It is, because it is about the kids, you know?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really is about because then they'll have to deal with things later on that, you know, just not too great. We've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Macha, what do you see? Where do you see this work going? Where do you see the constellations? What do you see, you know, in the future of constellations, and from your perspective?
I would love to see it be so mainstream that it's like, like drive-through constellations. Like that would be really cool. But just something that is that resistance just dissipates, and that there are more and more facilitators that do this work and that do it powerfully and beautifully, and that there are more opportunities to do these large groups and workshops. Because I think when people come together, it's such a gift. And I've seen these constellations, these breakout rooms, these events where there's like 100 people or more. And I mean, there was a situation that happened in Abu Dhabi that affected me personally. It was on half siblings, which if you think about like even the word half, it's like the word X, like it's like you're half my sister, you're my half brother. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful unfolding for me to see, because I really always considered myself an only child. My parents had me. I have these half siblings from my father's former marriage that were way older than me, that were more like aunts and uncles, and I mean, we're talking like 20 years older than me, like just, a big age gap. We didn't grow up together. We barely saw each other. But they still have to be acknowledged, and they still have to be honored as part of me. So when I saw that being unfolded, that was amazing. And there were so many people there, and people kept stepping up and being in this, like a lot of people had this same dynamic of not talking to their resentment towards their half sibling or whatever it was. And it was beautiful. Like we were all hugging each other.
Oh,
wow. I was up there like kind of helping my mom facilitate. And meanwhile, like I'm having this breakthrough moment, it was cool. It was very cool. And I was so grateful to it. So I was able to heal. There's always something to heal.
Yeah.
It's like always something.
Yeah. And
so that was great.
There's such power in the integration of the ones that we don't even know that they're excluded, but they have that everyone has their place in the family system. And that's, I've seen your mom do this work a lot. It's like, this is my first relationship. Mm-hmm. This is my second relationship. This is my third relationship. You are my fourth relationship. Like even people that you had, it could have been a high school, kind of sweetheart thing that person has a place in your story,
right?
Rather than having this exclusion. And the same thing comes with half or with siblings, that they're part of your system. They're part of your system. Even the perpetrators in your system have their place.
Exactly.
And that's so hard to reconcile. And that's such a difficult conversation to have, to say even perpetrators have their place in the system.
Yeah. I mean, that's why this work is definitely like not mainstream yet, because I think until people can get to that place, everybody's so divided, like good, bad, evil, this, like black and white, it's just, life is not like that. And that's what one of the things that Family Constellation has shown me. I mean, I've seen so many situations where I used to judge, this type of behavior. And then here I am playing that type of behavior on the field. And, this heart-opening experience of being a perpetrator. And, and I'm not somebody who perpetrates. So, And so playing that role and really diving in deep on the field of being that, it's like you're a wounded animal.
Yeah.
And once you see that compassion, that like nobody wants to be bad. Yeah. Nobody wants to do that nobody wants to hurt people. So once I started to see that, like my whole relationship with the world changed. I mean, it still creeps in. I'm human, but
So, Macha, can you talk about, from your guys' family perspective, the importance of the perpetrator dynamic?
So, would you be referring to like the Holocaust and that kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and your dad being a World War II vet, right? And
yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's so many layers in that. So my mom is a Holocaust survivor. My mom was in Marseille, France, when all of that was going down. My grandfather, Isidore, was deported to Auschwitz. And my mom, who was 1 year old at the time with my grandmother, they were in hiding. And during what was going on during that time was my father, because my parents were 22 years apart. So my dad was an American soldier, World War II. And he was, part of saving Europe. And, there were certain things that happened that, like just war casualties of war. The Americans dropped the bomb on my great-grandmother's home.
Wow.
And my great aunt was pregnant. She was 19, newly married, pregnant, and she died. And my great-grandmother suffered head injuries. She was in the hospital for a long time and did not know that her daughter had passed away because, she would have lost all will to live. Her own husband was away at another camp. Her son-in-law, my grandfather, was in Auschwitz. Like, there was a lot going down. So do we blame the Americans? No way. They saved us. And and there's another perpetrator in the story, my grandfather's best friend. I don't know if he was his best friend, but he was a friend. Enough of a friend that my grandfather loaned him a large sum of money. When my grandfather was trying to get his little young family out, my grandmother and my mom, he was calling in his debts, kind of. They were going to go to Switzerland. So he was, like, hey, you owe me this amount of money. I'm looking to leave, whatever it is. And at the time in Marseille, you were getting money for denouncing Jews. Telling the police where they were hiding or if they were leaving or where they were. Because the south of France over there in Marseille was one of the last places ever taken, actually, during World War II. So that's why my grandfather went to Auschwitz, like, kind of late in the game. Like, he was there, I hate to say only 9 months, but he was there 9 months, whereas some other people were there for a couple of years. And he was young and strong, and he wasn't young and strong. He wasn't strong when he came back, but his friend told on him, and they came and they got him. So, not only did he not have to pay back my grandfather, but he also got rewarded. So he was tried during the Nuremberg trials, and they were going to sentence him to death. And then after, it was just I don't know, there was some politics involved, and he got away. But I think the next day or 2 days later, he was hit by a truck crossing the street. Yeah. So again, the perpetrators, what would I have done during that situation? You're in wartime. I don't know what this man's struggles were. I would like to think that he didn't know that they were going to take my grandfather and torture him and do all the things that they did, but I mean, when people are living in warlike situations, I don't know. I've never lived in a wartime situation, so I don't know what that could be like. So, all my life I was like, oh, this asshole, but then I started to see things differently. And then I had another moment when my father's father left when my father was 9 years old. He just my father's brother, Sam, had just passed away at 4 years old because he didn't get the right care. They didn't have enough money. So, in, Lower East Side, Manhattan during the Depression, he needed to get his tonsils removed. He died. He bled out. And my father saw his father stuffing money into a sock. And my father told on him to his mother. And his father said to him, "You'll never see me again."
Wow.
And get this, my grandfather's name was Harry. And my husband's name is Harry. So obviously I had to make peace around this, and so all my life I grew up hearing that this Harry, my father's father, was this bastard, He was and my father never saw him again. But then on the field, and I did a constellation with Susie Tucker, who's another amazing facilitator. And this guy played Harry, my grandfather, and my grandmother, his wife, was on the field, my grandma Annie, and she's pushing me towards my grandfather, this poor guy who was playing my grandfather, had tears running down his face, boogers running down his nose. I mean, this guy was a mess. He's a perfect stranger. I did not want to hug him for those two reasons. First, because he was, this evil person. And second, because I'm kind of a germaphobe. It was ooh, can I touch him? But all of a sudden, something took over me. I hugged him. And amazing that I was able to make peace. This bastard Harry, my grandfather. And now he has his rightful place behind me, and I call on him for resources because I don't know what his dynamic was. I don't know what it was like for him growing up. I don't know what my grandma Annie was like. I didn't know what it was like being during the Depression, having lost a son, having a gambling problem. Like, I don't know. So it allows me to have some perspective of that and to not judge and to bring in. So those are the stories that I tell. I tell my children. I tell people all the time, and it felt better. It felt better than hating him.
Yeah. Yeah, and we kind of understanding how much the excluded ones in the family take all the oxygen out of the room, right? And they just serve to perpetuate the patterns rather than integrating them and having that resource behind us. So
exactly.
I know that, and you have every reason in the world to continue those patterns, right? It's like every, from World War to, Holocaust to, and the complexities of the victims and the perpetrators on different levels, on multiple, front and center, and very person-to-person betrayals, and then systemic betrayals of persecutions. And, just to really understand that we're all both victims and perpetrators, or we have the capacity for both victimization and being perpetrators. And, the more wounded we are, the more those things get amplified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so important to heal those things and have those perpetrators that are in your family take their rightful place behind you, because, they're there for a reason. And I do owe him life. If he hadn't had my father, then I wouldn't be here today. So even though he wasn't the most ideal dad for my dad, he was the best dad for him. So. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so, going back a little bit to your point about the amplification of this work, you and I have talked about Constellation Con, doing some big conference on constellations.
Still have to do it.
Yeah.
It's still on my vision board.
Yeah. So, I'm all about it. I think that this work really has the potential to help heal the world, right? To be a force that can stop these patterns of destruction. And, who more appropriate than your mom and your dad going, being the supporting, ancestral powers to these things that are trying to help prevent these atrocities from happening again, right? It's just, I think it's such a beautiful homage to, the fact that your mom was literally smuggled from house to house during World War II as a baby, right? It's like probably one of the hardest things to do is to smuggle a baby, not to get, found during persecute, right? Just the complexities and the depths of how much sacrifice and everything that had to happen at that full circle now on a world stage in Abu Dhabi, having these conversations and being supported by an incredible family and doing all these things is just, you can't make this stuff up, right?
No, you can't. And my mom says that all the time. You cannot make this shit up. That's what she says all the time. And, also like the amounts of German people that come. I've seen so many German people come to our constellations, and they have so much shame, and they have so much just ancestral guilt, of what some of their ancestors did, and to be able to help them release that, because that pain certainly is not theirs, like they weren't there. So, and to see them give that back and to understand why their ancestors did what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, we certainly can see it today. Like, I can certainly see today how people can turn the other way and, not want to get involved. And, you think back then and think, oh, people didn't know, there was no social media. We see things happening now in the world, like there's social media. We see it.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of work to be done there to help heal.
Yeah.
This type of, coming together, community, loving one another, helping one another.
Yeah, and reconciling that we're all victims and perpetrators, right? And that in our lineage, if we go back far enough, we all come from the same place.
100%.
Right? And that, we all have been victims and perpetrators and have repeated patterns. And, the thing that's most encouraging is that little by little, whatever healing modality that you've been involved with is making it better, right? Because if not, we wouldn't be here. If it stayed the same, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be enjoying this incredible technology and talking about this healing modality. So honoring everything that came before is such an integral part of this, right? Is the ugly stuff too, like the ugly stuff and the beautiful stuff.
You have to embrace it all.
Yeah, you have to embrace it all. Yeah. Yeah. But with that, Macha, I think this has been a beautiful conversation.
I always love talking to you. You're the best.
Likewise. So if you could just kind of, if we could let everybody let everybody know how to get a hold of you through social media, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So my mom, I manage her social media. It's Missing Link by Michelle. I can give that to you. And her website is Michelle with 2 L's, Bleckner.com. So I follow up with a lot of those different things, and we're very accessible. Like, you can find us definitely just online, on social media. And I tell everybody my mom likes to book her own appointments. So anybody who reaches out to me, I give them my mom's cell phone number. She likes to book it because, she has her card games and she has her things, and she likes to be, she told me she told somebody, she's like, yes, I'm a control freak. That's who I am. So we book, and I'm starting to do more and more constellations on my own. So, people can reach out there too on social media. So always happy to help.
Good.
And my mom has something that's really cool on Mondays. It's called URIM. And it's, you could pay, but you don't have to. It's I think $30 or $35. But it's a group coaching, and there's a lot of family constellation. There's a meditation. It's very casual. You could pop in, you could pop out. So we keep that Zoom link always the same. So this way everyone knows that they can find us, and that we're there for them, and that there's, they don't have to worry about financial constraints or anything like that.
And that's usually Monday nights, right?
It's every Monday from 11 to 1 p.m.
Okay. From 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do
if
you guys...
doesn't mind, you could leave your camera off. You can just tune in. You can, if you send her a little note on the chat saying I don't want to be called out, she won't call you out. Just you can leave if you need to. You can do it while you're driving. Just something to give you a good boost for the week.
And any big plans for the end of the year? You guys, I heard your mom's coming down in December.
Yep. So we're going to be, the first week in December, we're going to be in Palm Beach for Date with Destiny.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing groups there. Anyone can join. They can come see us. And we have all that information on our website, and if you sign up for our newsletter. And then she's going to be doing a lot of different constellations in Miami with her community that she loves so much. Includes you.
Yeah. And I'm planning on having her back on, so this would be our third, so that would be really exciting to have her on again.
I love your interviews. I mean, they're such a gift to me, so that I can have them forever.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's been a pleasure. I love your mom so much, and you guys are the best. I just really hold a special place with you guys. So
we love you. So we need to do our family constellation con.
Yeah,
we need to do that.
Yeah, I'm all in.
Work on it. 2025.
2025.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. That's our time.
Yeah. Macha, thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Zulu One Podcast. If you found value in today's podcast, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything to us. And thank you for being part of this journey.